death penalty cases, if no court grants relief or reverses the sentence, end in execution. The United States, almost all the states now have gone to lethal injection. There's been this procession of what's the most humane way to execute people. Is it the firing squad? Is it hanging? In the 1880s, the governor of New York said that hanging was barbaric and New York was going to the electric chair. By the late part of the 20th century, most people saw the electric chair as being barbaric. States also used the gas chamber to execute people. But today, the predominant way of executing people in the United States is lethal injection. It was seen as a, more humane, almost a medically type, putting somebody to sleep like as if they were going to have an operation. But what we've seen in the last 40 years is that lethal injection is not without its problems. The case of Ronell Broom is a good case in point. He was set for execution by Ohio. They tried repeatedly to inject him with the lethal drugs. He even helped them by trying to find a place to be injected. This went on for hours before they finally gave up, and he was not lethally injected. In 2014, there were executions in which one person said, I feel like my whole body's on fire after the lethal drugs started running into their body. In another case, the person made a lot of groaning and guttural noises and twisted around for a while before finally dying. And so there's a controversy about what drugs should be used in this process, the availability of the drugs, the qualifications of the people who carry out the executions. I mean, doctors will not carry out an execution because of the Hippocratic Oath. So the result is that often prison guards or maybe EMTs, emergency medical technicians, are the ones who are inserting the needle into the arm of the person. In Missouri, it turned out that the person who was in charge of lethal injections was dyslexic and was often operating in a little dark room using a flashlight, telling other people how to mix the drugs up and all that, and was not being done with any degree of precision at all, which was alarming to the courts as well as to people in general. And the secrecy after the practices like that came to light, like the Missouri practices, and after the suppliers of many of the drugs, pentobarbital and others in Europe, increasingly would not make those drugs available in the United States, or wouldn't make them available if they were going to be used for lethal injection. The result being that states have had more and more trouble finding drugs to put people to death with. Some states, notably Georgia, imported some drugs from a somewhat fly-by-night pharmacy that operated out of a driving school in London, was later seized. Those drugs were later seized by the Drug Enforcement Administration, which found that Georgia had illegally imported the drugs and secondly had illegally distributed the drugs to some other states. Increasingly, states started using compounding pharmacies. That is, these local pharmacies that put the drugs together. One Judge Kermit Bye on the 8th Circuit said some of these are about the equivalent of a high school chemistry class. And so there's been issues about whether or not these compounding pharmacies can actually provide drugs that are effective for doing this. In response to that, a lot of states have made the whole process secret. So you can't challenge it if you don't know what's going on. If you don't know who's carrying out the execution, you don't know whether they're qualified or not. Some states have even gone so far as to say the source of the drugs, the compounding pharmacy, is secret. Everything is secret. So the question is, can you eliminate the legal issue just simply by cloaking the whole process in secrecy, doesn't really give one a lot of confidence in the system. The notion of a democracy is transparency, but increasingly departments of corrections are going to secrecy as a way to hide exactly what they're doing in the lethal injection process. One state justified this by saying, well, it used to be that the hangman always wore a hood, so you didn't know who the hangman was. But it's a little bit different when you're buying drugs from a pharmacy than when you're the person who actually carries out the execution and might not want all your neighbors to know about it. Kentucky, lawyers in Kentucky for a person condemned to die, actually a couple of people condemned to die, raised the legality of lethal injection in a case called Bays versus Reese that went before the Supreme Court in 2008. The court rejected the argument, looking at a lot of its other cases in the Eighth Amendment area in which methods of execution had been upheld. The firing squad had been upheld, the electric chair had been upheld, and basically the court said, in sort of a splintered court, Chief Justice Roberts, joined by Justice Kennedy and Alito, said the risk of pain is not so substantial and imminent as to violate the Eighth Amendment. I should back up here and say the argument that was being made on behalf of the condemned men in this case was that they were being paralyzed, and then these additional drugs were being forced into their body, and if they were experiencing excruciating pain while these drugs were acting upon them until they finally stopped the beating of the heart, that would be cruel and unusual punishment. That would be unnecessary suffering. It was very hard. There were expert testimony saying that it was very possible that this could happen, particularly if you had people administering the drugs that didn't know what they were doing. Because if you administered the wrong dose, the first drug would induce sleep or put the person, make the person unconscious. The second drug would paralyze the person, would eventually cause suffocation if nothing else happened, but then the final drug was to stop the beating of the heart. But the question was whether when that drug was administered, the person could feel what was going on or not. Roberts, Kennedy and Alito say that Kentucky's doing enough. They're minimizing the chance that anything's going to go wrong, and they're not required. There may be a better way to do it, but that states aren't required to do it the best way. They're just required not to take they certainly can involve the gratuitous infliction of pain, and they can't take a substantial risk of that kind of thing happening. Well, Justice Stevens said that under the court's under the prior cases, he thought it was acceptable. He also took the opportunity here to say that based on his many years on the court, he had come to the conclusion that the death penalty no longer was serving anything but negligible value, that the purposeless taking of human life was making only the most marginal contributions to society, and therefore probably was disproportionate and unconstitutional. This was very late in his career on the court. Justice Scalia and Thomas said unless it was deliberately cruel, there was no problem. So unless the state was trying to inflict a punishment that was cruel, no constitutional problem. Justice Breyer said that based on his reading of things, Kentucky's method did not result in an unnecessary risk of suffering, so he concurred. But Justice Ginsburg, joined by Justice Souter, dissented, saying that in their view, the Kentucky procedures were not adequate. There were Eighth Amendment grounds that were raised, but those were just 2 out of 7 votes. So it looked like, at the time that Bays came down, that this was pretty much the end of any challenges to lethal injection. This was in 2008. But since that time, there have continued to be, and probably will continue to be, a number of challenges to lethal injection. In Kentucky, when this case went back, when Bays versus Reese went back to Kentucky, it was pointed out that they had to go through the Kentucky Administrative Procedures Act to set up a new execution protocol. And so all of the executions were put on hold until such time as that was done. That was also done in California, ending sort of there were already litigation about lethal injection in California, and this added one more element to that. There's also questions about the compounding pharmacies, questions about the secrecy, all of those kinds of things. So while lethal injection was seen as a way to make the death penalty more acceptable, it hasn't quite turned out that way. Some states have even thought about going back to firing squad. And of course, I'm saying that's really the only way to ensure the death of a person that's quick, painless, and so forth. Hard to imagine. I mean, Utah still uses a firing squad. Some other states are talking about bringing it back. I suppose one other method of execution that might be considered is the guillotine, which also is very fast and didn't result in any lingering pain or any of the risks involved with lethal injection, but we're probably not going to go there and probably not going to go to the firing squad either. Some states have also said they'll fall back on electrocution if need be. But other states like Georgia have declared electrocution unconstitutional under its state constitution, so that's not an option. So again, lethal injection was supposed to make capital punishment more acceptable, more anesthetic. It hasn't quite worked out that way.